Welcome to Too Fond of Books. My name is Janelle, and in this video I am going to share my TBRs for two separate challenges that I'm participating in this August. One is the Nightingale August Challenge, and I will link to the announcement video down below for this challenge. I am really late to the game getting my TBR out for this, but I had books on hold from the library that were taking a really long time to come in, and there's still a couple that are coming in, but I thought I just need to get this out there. We're already almost halfway through the month. And so this will be my TBR for that, and I am doubling up and using some of the books from that reading challenge for the History Challenge, which is taking place between the 17th and the 30th of August. And this is a History Challenge hosted by Emma from A Cup of Books, Justin from Triumphal Reads, Jenny from Bookish Shenanigans, and Justin from The Ghost Reader. And I will put links to their announcement videos down below as well. I really enjoy history. It is one of my favorite things to read about, and I love mystery, and so historical mystery is my absolute favorite genre to read, but I do enjoy reading non-fiction history quite a lot, and so this History Challenge really intrigued me. And since I was had already decided to participate in the Nightingale August Challenge, I decided to kind of combine those two reading challenges. And so I'm going to start with the challenges and my TBR for the Nightingale August Challenge, and then I will show you my smaller TBR connected to the History Challenge. So let's just get right into it. There are 5 challenges for the Nightingale August Challenge, and this challenge is just to read more about Florence Nightingale and as a person and the advancements that she brought to nursing, and also to just read more about nursing and our healthcare workers, and just kind of highlight what they have accomplished. And so the first of the 5 challenges is to read a biography of Florence Nightingale. And so I got from the library Florence Nightingale by Cecil Woodham Smith. This is a massive biography, and it was written in, one second, this was first published in 1950, which I find interesting. Here, look at this, this picture here. I don't know if you can see that or not. So Florence Nightingale lived from 1820 to 1910, and this picture of her here, Miss Nightingale with her tame owl Athena circa 1850, after a drawing by Parthenope Lady Verney. Very interesting. So that's what I have for a biography of Florence Nightingale. The second challenge is to read any literary work written by Florence Nightingale. Now, there were some conditions put on this, non-fiction and non-medical. However, I had a hard time finding something. Not all the books were available from the library, and so I do have something by Florence Nightingale, but it is medical. It's her notes on nursing, what it is and what it is not. And I have a copy of that on my Kindle. This is something that's in the public domain, and so you can get it pretty easily for free, and so I've got it downloaded on my Kindle. The third challenge is the Crimean War, or contributions of Florence Nightingale during the Crimean War. And so I have another book coming in from the library about this, but the one I have to show you right now is A Brief History of the Crimean War, The Causes and Consequences of a Medieval Conflict Fought in a Modern Age by Alexis Troubetzkoy. Now, what I find interesting here is what is going to be the perspective. So this is a Russian-born author, and so I'm finding that very intriguing. And so this is a look at kind of all of the events surrounding the war in Crimea, and I'm very interested because I have a vague understanding of what that war was about, but really not a lot. So I'm looking forward to delving into this and getting some good information about the Crimean War. In September 1854, the armies of Britain, France, and Turkey invaded Russia, ostensibly over disputed access to the holy sites of Jerusalem. But few wars in history revealed greater confusion of purpose than this notoriously incompetent international butchery. That's apparently a quote by Hobsbawm. In the months that followed, over 500,000 soldiers died from wounds, disease, starvation, and sheer cold. We all know of the heroic folly of the charge of the Light Brigade. The Crimean War was a medieval conflict fought in a modern age. This new account by a Russian historian shows that the extraordinary struggle was fought not only in the Crimea, but also along the Danube, in the Arctic Ocean, in the Baltic and Pacific. Much has been written about the war itself, and Troubetzkoy does not aim to cover old ground, but traces its true causes and sketches a vivid picture of the age that made it possible. Woven with developments in diplomacy, trade, and nationalistic expression are descriptions of the Russian, Turkish, and British armies and the principal players: Napoleon III, Marshal Saint Arnaud, Lord Raglan, the great Russian engineer Todleben, Florence Nightingale, Nicholas I. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to getting into that. I also found, while I was looking around for some nonfiction about the Crimean War, this little gem of a novel, Alexis Soyer's The Chef at War. This book was originally published as a culinary campaign in 1857. Alexis Soyer is a French chef who was renowned in Victorian England, and he joined the British troops at the front in the Crimean War to improve the quality of the food they were eating. So I find that very, very interesting. It's just a slim little thing, and I'm looking forward to delving into that. Interestingly enough, Alexis Soyer is mentioned in this book, and at the end of it, he also includes some of the recipes and stuff that are in this book. Okay, the fourth challenge is any novel based on nurses or nursing. So I've already mentioned that I love historical mystery, so I was super excited to find this, No Cure for the Dead by Christine Trent. This is a historical mystery featuring Florence Nightingale. You can't get any better than that, right? I really enjoy Christine Trent. She's got a series about a female undertaker that is set in Victorian times, and I quite enjoy that series. And so this is the first in her Florence Nightingale mystery series. It is 1853. Lady of the Lamp Florence Nightingale has just accepted the position of Superintendent of the Establishment for Gentlewomen during temporary illness in London. How is that for a job title? Superintendent of the Establishment for Gentlewomen during temporary illness. Right? Okay. She has hardly had time to learn the names of the nurses in her charge when she suddenly finds one of them hanging in the establishment's library. Her name was Nurse Bellamy. Florence's mettle is tested by the dual goals of preserving what little reputation her hospital has and bringing Nurse Bellamy's killer to justice. Her efforts are met with upturned noses and wayward glances, except for her close friend and advocate inside the House of Commons, Sidney Herbert. As Florence digs deeper, however, her attention turns to one of the hospital investors, and suddenly Sidney becomes reluctant to help. With no one but herself to count on, Florence must now puzzle out what the death of an unknown, nondescript young nurse has to do with conspiracies lurking about at the highest levels of government before she is silenced too. And then I have a couple other options if I get to them. This is Band of Angels by Julia Gregson. Growing up in Wales, Catherine Carrig has been allowed to run wild, spending her childhood racing ponies along the beach with her friend Deo, the cattle driver's son. But Catherine's consumed by a longing to escape the monotony of village life and runs away to London with Deo's help. Alone in the unfamiliar city, Catherine secures a position in Florence Nightingale's Home for Sick Governesses. As the nation is gripped by reports of war in the Crimea, Catherine volunteers as a nurse, and her life changes beyond all recognition. Arriving in Scutari, she is immediately thrown into a living nightmare. Amid the madness and chaos, Catherine is forced to grow up quickly, learning the hardest lessons of love and war. And then I also have The Nightingale Sisters by Donna Douglas. This is the second one, and the first one is coming in from the library as well. And these are historical fictions set in, I believe, in London. And they're student nurses basically at the Nightingale Hospital, and they're set in the 30s. This one is 1935. And this one is about 3 student nurses. As the nation mourns the death of King George V, it seems as if nothing is ever going to be the same again, especially for the women at the Nightingale. To the student nurses at the Nightingale Hospital, the ward sisters are heartless and frightening, with impossibly high standards, but the sisters have trouble of their own. All right, and then the 5th one is to read a real-life story of nurses or a real-life contribution in the field of nursing. And I've got four possibilities here, all slightly different. This is called No Time for Romance by Lucilla Andrews, and this is the inspirational story of a nurse in wartime. So this is the story of a nurse in London during World War II. She was only 18 when, as a volunteer nurse at the beginning of the Second World War, she experienced the grim realities of wartime. Young, inexperienced, and coming from a cultured and comfortable and sheltered background, she found herself dealing with survivors from Dunkirk and the victims of the Blitz. Seeing these horrors at first hand had a profound and lasting effect upon her and made her determined to train as a nurse at St. Thomas's Hospital. No Time for Romance is her story, the powerful and moving account of a young girl in wartime London learning the hard way about medicine, injuries, and death, as well as love and hope. It's the story both of personal courage and the courage of the British people at war. And then I also have At the Coalface by Joan Hart with Veronica Clark, the heartwarming true story of a Yorkshire pit nurse. So I thought this sounded really interesting. This is set in the 70s, and she works, she's a nurse for miners. When she took a job as a pit nurse in 1974, she found that in order to be accepted by the men under her care, she would have to become one of them. Swapping her traditional nurse's uniform for a baggy miner's suit, pit boots, and hard hat, Joan went on to tend injured and trapped men in the pits and provide support for them and their families during the bitter miners' strikes of the 1980s. This one also sounded really interesting, called The Nurse by Mary J. MacDonald, true stories of a country nurse on a Scottish isle. And so this is set on, it's set in the Hebrides. And so, yeah, that just sounded really interesting as well. And then finally, Bread, Jam, and a Borrowed Pram by Dot May Dunn. And this is set in England at the end of the 1950s. She is, Dot is a health visitor. The war's long shadow is fading, and while the country gets ready for the swinging 60s, Dot is embarking on an adventure of her own. After qualifying as a midwife, she has taken a job as a health visitor working from an inner city clinic. Her beat is a maze of streets, alleyways, and courtyards, all overflowing with families trying to survive any way they can. Whether at the clinic, out visiting cases, or retrieving errant parents from pawn shops and pubs, Dot is thrown in at the deep end. As a health visitor, Dot is responsible not just for the babies brought into the world, but an army of toddlers, tykes, and tots who all need a helping hand. So that is my TBR for the Nightingale August Challenge, and I'm really excited to delve in and kind of learn a little bit more about the Crimean War, about Florence Nightingale, and about the experiences of nurses from a different time period. I chose all stories of nurses that are not from the current day, but from a different time period. So my TBR then for the History Challenge, there is a bingo card that was included with 16 possible prompts, and so I've done some combinations here, and so I am going to include this biography of Florence Nightingale for the prompt memoir, biography, or autobiography, and then covering 1, 2, 3 prompts is No Cure for the Dead by Christine Trent. This is the historical mystery featuring Florence Nightingale. So this is going to cover the prompts historical fiction, woman author, and a country on a different continent. Covering also 3 prompts is the Crimean War by Alexis Troubetzkoy, and this will be for the prompts a different country's history, your favorite time period, macro or multidisciplinary history, and so I have a number of different favorite time periods, but the Victorian era counts, and so that's good. And I think a broad look at like this of the Crimean War counts for macro or multidisciplinary history. And then for micro history, I am going to include The Chef at War by Alexis Soyer, because we're delving right in here into food served to the soldiers at the Crimean War, and I think that definitely counts as micro history. And then finally, for history of a social issue, I am going to count At the Coalface by Joan Hart with Veronica Clark, because this is about a woman who was a nurse at a Yorkshire mine, and so that is definitely a social issue. So this then is my TBR for the History Challenge, and so I love that I was able to combine these 2 reading challenges, and I'm really looking forward to delving into these books and learning more. I love history, so thanks everybody who is hosting both of these challenges. And I will be putting up some videos to talk about the books that I've been reading. So thanks very much. Have you read any of these books? Do any of these challenges sound interesting to you? Do you enjoy reading about history? If so, why don't you let me know in the comment section down below, what is your favorite time period to read about? Whether fiction or nonfiction, it doesn't matter. But what is your favorite time period? I love to talk about that with people and find out kind of what time period you enjoy reading about. And I'll see you for another video soon. Bye.